Welcome back to Ask Dr. Clark. Many pastors and counselors think that emotional adultery is not as bad as physical. Today, I'm going to tell you what I think. So today's topic is this: is emotional adultery as bad as physical adultery? A lot of confusion about that. We're going to clear it up today. Thanks to all of you who have subscribed to my YouTube channel. We are growing, and me and my team are grateful. Together, we're making a difference. And thanks to your reviews and comments, too. I appreciate those. I value your input. This may come as a shock, but Dr. Clark doesn't know everything. I learn a lot from other people and from our digital community. I'm learning a lot from you, and I appreciate that very much. Every day I learn something. And it goes into a podcast. It goes into a YouTube video like this. It goes into one of the books I'm writing. Thanks. Today's question. In this case, this is the husband, of course, talking. My wife had an emotional affair with an old boyfriend who lives 2,000 miles away. It was all by digital communication, obviously. Text, email, phone, Facebook, he says. They never met in person. It lasted 3 months, and their communications were very personal and sexual. Okay, not good. My pastor and Christian counselor say I should be grateful that it wasn't a physical affair and it won't be as difficult to heal. What do you think? Here's my answer. I think you should stop talking to your pastor about her adultery, your wife's adultery. He doesn't get it, clearly. 2, I think you should fire your counselor immediately and find one who understands adultery. This person's clueless. 3, I think anyone who asks you to be grateful about your wife's adultery is absolutely clueless and will be of no help to you in the process of healing. 4, I think a counselor who believes emotional adultery isn't as bad as physical adultery will also give bad advice on how to heal. I see this happen a lot. This is the kind of helper who will say, forgive quickly and move on. And the adultery was partly your fault anyway, and they'll kind of drag you into it, even though you had nothing to do with it. And this counselor will try to work on the marriage before you are sufficiently healed. He's already on that track, as you can see, he or she. I'm not sure what sex the counselor is here. But by saying that, well, this isn't that bad, or it's not as bad as the physical, they're already giving the message, well, this won't be that tough to heal from. Baloney. You want to say to the counselor, yeah, have you gone through this? Has your wife had an emotional affair? Then you wouldn't be saying this. Here's the bottom line. Emotional adultery is just as bad, just as awful, just as painful, just as traumatic as physical adultery. In fact, it can easily be worse. All we need to do is look at the standard Jesus Christ set in Matthew 5 and verse 28, where Jesus says, but I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. That is the standard. That's adultery. It's just in your head. Nothing was even exchanged. That's the standard. What's in the mind counts as adultery. What is said counts as adultery, even if you never touched the person. So emotional adultery is full-blown adultery. As awful and traumatic as physical adultery is, and it is, without question, it's a horrible violation. Emotional adultery is just as awful and traumatic. Your spouse has feelings for someone else. Your spouse thinks she's in love with someone else. Your spouse has shared intimate things only meant for you with someone else. Your spouse has talked about sexual things with someone else. Your spouse has put this other person, this low-quality dirtball, frankly, in her heart. You know what this is? It's betrayal. It's a deep wound. It is adultery in every sense of the term. I've been working with couples that have experienced adultery, emotional, physical, for 35 years. So I know what I'm talking about. Hundreds, if not thousands of couples. And I've seen the pain in the victim of an emotional affair, and it's just as serious as the physical. So do not allow your wife, I'm talking to this guy, do not allow your wife or anyone else to minimize her adultery and say, it's not that bad, it could have been worse. They never touched each other, so it's not really adultery. And that's what they're kind of saying. It's not really full-blown adultery. Yes, it is. Get my book, I Don't Love You Anymore. I've got a book for everything, as most of you know. I Don't Love You Anymore. And the two of you can follow my plan of recovery. You can find a therapist who will agree with this, and many do, frankly. Especially these days, I think that you can get through. I know you can get through. This book's on my website, davideclarkphd.com, Clark with an E. Find a new Christian counselor who agrees with my recovery plan, at least the basics of it, and do the hard work of healing. It's going to take you 3 to 4 months, at least. Now, the good news is with the right approach, you two can completely heal and build a brand new marriage that is much better than the one you had. I've seen that happen hundreds of times. Now, if your wife, this wife will not accept that her emotional adultery is full-blown adultery and resists my plan of recovery and simply won't get her work done, get my book, My Spouse Wants Out. You're going to have to do some serious tough love on her, hoping to get her attention and to break her. Because what the counselor is doing and the pastor, frankly, in this, or anyone that says it's not that bad, it is increasing and encouraging her minimization of the adultery. And acting like it's not that bad. It wasn't really that bad of a sin. That's not helping. Finally, if you're in a marital crisis or know someone who is, you can talk to me about it. Check out my phone advice service on my website, davideclarkphd.com. That's Clark with an E.